Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. Luo Feng was confused. Castellan teacher had asked him to come to see him after 10 battles, but here he was after only 2. And the Castellan was patient enough to wait for him to finish. You're going to create the second move? The Castellan asked, looking at Luo Feng. Yes, Luo Feng said with respect. I don't think the first move of Moon Policy or 10,000 Star Sermon map is enough, which is why I need to create the second one. You're studying both of them, the Castellan continued. Yes. Luo Feng didn't hesitate a bit. The Castellan frowned and said in a throaty voice, Did you engage in any fighting? 2, Luo Feng answered. I barely won the first one but lost the second one. What's your takeaway from that? The Castellan asked. I realized that both strengths and treasures are important, Luo Feng said. For one thing, treasures can't be fully utilized if the owner is not powerful enough. Plus, one will be put at a disadvantage in a battle against enemies at the same level if he doesn't have treasures. For me, I have adequate treasures, whereas I need to increase my power. Both Luo Feng and the Castellan stood among the stars in the practice field and engaged in questions and answers. Didn't these battles make you realize that you're wasting your time trying to follow the spirit reader path? The Castellan scolded Luo Feng in a raucous voice. The voice directly hit Luo Feng's mind, yet Luo Feng remained extraordinarily firm. Waste of time? Luo Feng shook his head. No. I feel like I'm strengthened and that it's the right path for me. Luo Feng thought the Castellan was kidding because he owned the star map, which was designed for spirit reader to attack. He wouldn't be able to defeat Limit Emperors with his own power and moves, whereas he could outpower Lightning Racing Emperor with the star map. The Castellan shook his head. Give up. Give up on the spirit reader path and focus on the warrior path. The Castellan sighed. Luo Feng was dazed and stared at the Castellan who had been guiding him all along. Why? He asked. I have an unrelenting will, and I inherited from Demon Sound General, which gave me a high frequency of amplitude. I can make great accomplishments following the spirit reader path. But you can accomplish greater things if you follow the warrior path, the Castellan said. Could you please clarify? Luo Feng said and bowed. The Castellan looked at his student, knowing that it was impossible for him to give up because of one sentence alone. I'll elaborate on it, the Castellan said with earnestness. First of all, you're a black warrior. Second, you're following the path of Beast God. Luo Feng listened carefully. The Black Warrior has become a legend in Blood Riverland, the Castellan said. Being a Black Warrior means your genes tally with those of the Beast God, and you can significantly improve your genes using Blood of Beast God in the future. Genes are foundational. If you're fundamentally 1,000 times stronger, how is your enemy going to fight you? Besides, the fallen Beast God in Blood Riverland concentrated on close combat. Remember, Spirit Reader can never reach the top by following the path of Beast God. The Castellan looked at Luo Feng. Luo Feng was bewildered. Can never reach the top. You have to follow the path of the warrior to match Beast God's level, the Castellan said. You're a black warrior, so you have an extremely rare constitution. The fact that you could improve so quickly on the path of Beast God shows your great talent. How can you squander it? You're likely to become a master of the universe if you follow the path of the warrior. It's indeed difficult, but success is guaranteed. If you just follow your own whims, it will be almost impossible for you to become a master of the universe. Luo Feng fell into silence. Some small clans don't even know about this secret, said the Castellan. Some have tried both paths like you, which is ridiculous because they will never be able to reach the top. Just take Shi Luo Duo as an example. He was stuck at the last challenge and never managed to cross it. The Castellan looked at Luo Feng. Think deeply, and give me the answer when you're done. The Castellan turned around. Luo Feng remained silent. I can only follow the path of the warrior if I want to match the Beast God. Luo Feng mused. Being a black warrior means my genes tally with the Beast God. That's right. I learned 9 Calamity Tome, after which my genes sharply improved, exceeding those of humans, and that's how I managed to merge the 10 Black River crystals. One path is given by Castellan teacher. I need to follow the path of the warrior and the Beast God, and I'm likely to become as powerful as the Beast God, which means I will become a master of the universe. The Spirit Reader is offered by teacher Zhuoshan Ku. I'll concentrate on 9 Calamity Tome, and there's no need to create any form of secret techniques, because I'll take charge of the Star Tower when I become more powerful in the future. Both students of teachers Wu Shanku are masters of the universe, which means it is more likely that I'll become a master of the universe following this path, not to mention one of the most forceful treasures, Star Tower. Which one should I choose? Different scenarios struck Luo Feng's mind. He laughed. Why should I even bother? I'll follow two paths since each of them offers a chance for me to become a master of the universe. Luo Feng perked up. I'm not like Bran, who divided his focus between two laws. Although it seems like I am following both the path of the warrior and the path of the spirit reader, I'm following the path of the beast god, essentially. And I can study how to combine them together if I follow both paths. Among the stars, the Castellan stood in the void for quite a while. Teacher, Luo Feng finally said with veneration. You've made your decision? The Castellan sounded tranquil. Yes, Luo Feng said, looking as if there were lights in his eyes. I've decided to follow both paths, and I'll give one of them up if I realize I have made the wrong decision in the future. The Castellan turned to Luo Feng. I will say no more on this, as you've made up your mind, said the Castellan. I'll see how far you can go by following both paths. Luo Feng looked at the teacher. Great. The Castellan nodded. It's okay to make mistakes. What really matters is whether you can persevere and put your heart into it. Luo Feng kneeled. Thank you, teacher. He kneeled because he was sincerely thankful. He realized that the Castellan would still support him even if he went against his suggestions, and that the Castellan arranged one opponent after another for him to practice his secret techniques, which was time-consuming. Even if the Castellan valued Luo Feng because of his race, he owed so much to him. He needed to remember his kindness and repay it when he had the chance. Let's begin. Luo Feng disappeared, and the golden horned beast appeared. Luo Feng followed the usual schedule and started with Moon Policy, followed by 10,000 Star Sermon Map. In the rural area of the universe, Black Flower Secret Region, inside Ice Hell, the news was spreading that Luo Feng had managed to survive both Death God's Point and Silver Look and escape. However, there weren't advanced communications in Ice Hell and the detector Luo Feng carried was interrupted. It was not realistic to establish an internal virtual world inside Ice Hell. Poor communication. Besides, there were feuds between the powerful creatures, and they were so hostile toward each other that they would fight each other anytime they met. Only some friends or equals would gather once in a while. As a result, only 1/3 of the creatures knew about what Luo Feng had done after more than half a year had passed. In the snows of southern Ice Hell stood a spectacular palace with blocks of ice littered all around. Demon race characters were crafted on them, which were clearly the rankings of Ice Hell. Without a doubt, inside the palace lived a very special creature, Sky Wolf, one of the 5 invincible emperors. Additionally, he was the editor of the rankings and also happened to be best-tempered. It was said that Sky Wolves were ruthless and fierce creatures, whereas the Sky Wolf living here was arguably one of the most peaceful. However, he would also kill if he was irritated. After all, he was one of the top 5 creatures in all of Ice Hell, a title earned by majestic battles. In the tremendous icy throne sat a mountain-like demon around 15 kilometers long. It was covered with snowy hair tipped with gold, giving the appearance of a halo around him. There were 3 strange, scar-shaped engravings on his forehead. He was Sky Wolf. Master, it seems the ranking needs to be updated. There have been new battles. Yes. It was the human who fought with Lightning Racing Emperor and Silver Eye. 5 servants covered with scales stood in the palace, and they were at the level of officials. Sky Wolf had brought them here when it was detained. Human. Sky Wolf suddenly raised his head and glared down at them. Where is the human? Find the human right now. The servants were dazed. Master, the fight was more than half a year ago. More than half a year? Sky Wolf growled. When the human showed up in Ice Hell, Silver Eye had publicly looked for him. Sky Wolf, on the other hand, had sent his servants to search for him in secret but had eventually given up the search. He hadn't expected the news to come more than half a year late. This can't go on, said Sky Wolf. Sky Wolf stood up with his 4 hoofs on the throne. His servants kneeled down under the fear of his might. The 5 servants stayed silent, kneeling. Sky Wolf looked bellicose. Even if the human shows himself sometime in the future, he will disappear again when I get the news. Sky Wolf realized that and quickly made a decision. Prepare the ice tablets, he said in a deep voice. Yes, master, the servants answered. One of them turned around his hands and put a giant, bar-shaped ice tablet on the ground. Sky Wolf walked down from the throne and toward the tablet. Tell me about the 2 battles, Sky Wolf said. Yes, master. The human fought Lightning Racing Emperor first, and the Emperor was suppressed by the human. Besides, the human was so rapid that lightning racing Emperor couldn't run away, and he resorted to burning his own body. However, he was still slower than the human with his body being burned. The 5 servants told the stories one by one. Although some details were left out, they mentioned all the key points. Sky Wolf looked down at the ice tablet. Demon race characters appeared on the tablet one by one, and the new ranking was determined. First, Blood Dog. Second, Silver Eye. Third, Sky Wolf. Fourth, Black Wind. Fifth, Cin. Sixth, Human. These creatures were named according to their races, for instance, Cin, Human, and Sky Wolf. As for Blood Dog, Silver Eye, and Black Wind, they had been given these names due to their appearances. This was a usual way to name someone because there was only one from the Cin clan and one from the human race. The ranking was soon determined, and each name came with a description. The names and the descriptions almost filled the ice tablet, only to leave a huge blank on the top. The servants were baffled and started to mutter, "Master always crafted the ranking from the top to the bottom. Why did it change?" "Yes. I've never seen Master do this." As they were discussing this, demon race characters started to appear on the blank. "Anyone who brings the human to me will be forever protected. And I swear I will not kill him if I see the human. I swear to all of Ice Hell, and this tablet is the evidence." "Done." Sky Wolf raised his head. "Make 900 copies of this and send them to the peak of the mountain on the other side." "Yes, Master," the 5 servants answered with veneration. They made 900 copies instantly, and one of them flew away carrying these tablets. He flew toward the mountain near Ice Sea where the ranking was usually distributed. That was a battle-free zone where no occupation was allowed, which had been agreed upon by everyone in Ice Hell. The tablets were carried away by one creature after another, and Sky Wolf's bounty spread throughout Ice Hell. Sky Wolf's protection? Unless Sky Wolf dies, nobody can kill me if I can get its protection. Will Sky Wolf break its promise? How is that possible? Sky Wolf announced that through the ranking and made it known to everyone. He's not likely to break his promise because of us and humiliate himself publicly. Besides, Sky Wolf is always proud and doesn't deign to attack us. Also, everyone knows he's peaceful. Hurry up and find the human. That's right. Let's go find the human. All the other creatures tiptoed except for the strongest ones. Even Bone Emperor and Lightning Racing Emperor would avoid meeting the 5 invincible emperors, not to mention the others. Though they were weak, they made up 90% of the creatures in Ice Hell. They devoted themselves wholeheartedly to finding Luo Feng. However, Luo Feng's habitation was hidden deep in the snow, and there was a microdetector around. Even if some creatures actually arrived there, they couldn't detect Luo Feng with their eyes or godly force unless they destroyed the whole place and forced Luo Feng to come out. The creatures vehemently searched for the human for hundreds of years, after which the enthusiasm gradually wore off. However, there were still some weak emperors continuing to search because once they succeeded, they could live a peaceful life. On one of the islands of the sea, Luo Feng, dresses in black, sat on the beach watching the tides. As for the golden horned beast, it was staying in Inner World and copying the sculpture of Beast God. "It's been 1,000 years, said Luo Feng. "I thought it would be almost impossible to improve because my conception of the Beast God reached level 20 of Heavenly Bridge 1,000 years ago. By contrast, it was slowly but constantly improving." Luo Feng was smiling. "However, there's a huge gap between level 20 and level 21, which takes 10 times longer than improving from level 19 to 20. The conception of Beast God was achieved by copying different sizes of Beast God sculptures. Luo Feng's perception of the merging law of Tao of Beast God was important as well, as it was difficult to achieve without it. Perception of law was the root and the trunk. Conception was the branches. Only if the root was deep enough and the trunk thick enough that the tree could bloom. They were functioning upon each other. With the perception of law, one could grasp a higher level of conception. Meanwhile, a higher level of conception boosted the perception of law. Time flew. The golden horned beast concentrated on Ranshan 7 move and tried to apprehend the conception of Beast God by copying. The human form was studying moon policy and 10,000 star sermon map. The Castellan provided different opponents based on the weaknesses of Luo Feng's moves, under which Luo Feng refined his moves and improved sharply. He was already able to create new moves based on the second chapter, Muscle, and apply the law in a magnificently comprehensive way. It took Luo Feng 1,600 years to create the second move for moon policy. Both the move of Blade and Shaw Wu Wing could be utilized. One move of blade could destroy any obstacle. It was almighty. However, Luo Feng ran into some difficulties when studying 10,000 Star Sermon map. Luo Feng originally thought that he could create the second move of the map 10 times faster than creating the move for Moon Policy. After all, he was already experienced. However, it was much more difficult than Luo Feng thought. The first move is based on the first chapter, and it's simpler. Yet the second one stems from the second chapter, which is far more complicated. It becomes so difficult that I can't extrapolate from Moon Policy. Luo Feng identified the key distinction between the law of close combat and that of spirit weapon. The two weapons would only become more different when the secret technique became more intricate, and the experience would become increasingly useless. Inside the Palace of Thunder Island in the virtual universe, Luo Feng stepped into the palace, stopped halfway, and greeted, "Master, I've created the second move for both. Please give me some advice." "You realized, didn't you?" came a voice from the infinite airflow. "I realized," Luo Feng said with respect, "that I was wrong to think it would be easier to create the move for spirit weapon if I knew how to create the move for close combat. However, it wasn't as easy as I thought. You're creating the top secret technique instead of the mediocre one. There are fundamental differences between the arcane codes of close combat and spirit weapons. Of course, the more you study them, the more obvious the differences will be. You can still refer to each other when creating the first or second move, but there will be no point when you start the third and fourth move. What's more, it will only slow you down if you do that when you're creating the fifth move, let alone the sixth one. And it will be an impossible venture to create the seventh move, which represents the power of a master of the universe." "Ah!" Luo Feng was startled. "Diluting your concentration can indeed help you at first by supplementing one arcane code to another," the Castellan said. "However, they will only negatively affect each other when you reach a higher level, making it strenuous to create one more move. You think the powerful creatures are afraid of squandering time? No. They have eternal lives and couldn't care less about time. What they're really afraid of is losing the chance of the peak forever. Are you still sticking to your own way?" "I am," Luo Feng said, nodding. "Fine. You're still qualified to make mistakes. Let's just hope you will change your mind when you start to create the fourth move." Luo Feng bowed without saying a word. "Keep on. Show that you're right with your achievements." The sound was vague. "Yes, teacher." Luo Feng bowed, thinking that he would definitely prove it with his accomplishments. Luo Feng vanished, and his consciousness went back to reality. Inside the cave of Eastern Ice Hell, Luo Feng finally opened his eyes. He had been sitting in the living room with his legs crossed. "Just wait for it, Castellan teacher," Luo Feng said. He had lost the joy he should have had after creating a new move. Rather, all he had was the intention to battle. "I need the reality to tell me I was wrong." Luo Feng left the cave and arrived at the surface of the snow. He walked slowly on the snow. "Masters of the universe are the peak of the universe," Luo Feng said under his breath. "However, not all the masters are equally powerful. The Castellan is top tier, second brother Flaming Emperor is mid tier, and big brother Put is low tier. Regardless, they were all awed by billions of clans in the universe. Nevertheless, Flaming Emperor doesn't possess a treasure like Star Tower, even though he has two treasures, while the treasures Put has might be inferior to those of Flaming Emperor. Star power triggered the war between the top four clans. It's able to stand solid between stars in the battlefield outside the domain, consuming energies constantly, which led to 9 whirlpool nebulas, and the whirlpool could easily tear a universe knight apart. The most powerful treasure. Luo Feng nodded in silence. According to Zhuoshan Ku, when Luo Feng became a universe knight and collected the last piece of metal for 9 Calamity Tome, he would almost be able to operate the entire Star Tower, and if he managed to do that, he could have the authority to talk with masters of the universe equally. That means I will be the equal of the masters of the universe when I become universe knight, as long as I can operate the Sky Tower, Luo Feng thought. In this case, I must not waste this treasure, which is coveted by even the most powerful in the universe. The core of each element of the star map is a soul-controlling valuable. Tower pearls and ceiling stars were nothing compared to the Star Tower. It was incredibly powerful. The more Luo Feng thought about it, the more convinced he was that he had been right to follow the Spirit Reader path. Teacher said following both paths spelled failure to create the 7th move. Luo Feng shook his head. However, the Castellan also said before that no human could become a master of the universe following the path of Beast God. Maybe some individuals of the barbarian races managed to. Of course, they are but exceptions, mused Luo Feng. Exceptions can't represent anything. Maybe the teacher exaggerated a bit to convince me. Luo Feng walked step by step on the snow. Thoughts kept flooding his mind, which was affected by what the Castellan had said. Although Luo Feng stayed firm both in front of his teacher and himself, the Castellan was one of the 3 most powerful humans in the universe, and what he said could exert a huge impact on Luo Feng. That was why he needed to keep reminding himself of his motive in the first place. He was firm not only because he had faith in himself but also because Zhuoshan Ku was more powerful than the Castellan. Luo Feng wasn't blind. Without Zhuoshan Ku, he would ponder for quite a while because of what the Castellan said. A creature hid behind the ice tablets at the peak of an iceberg, staring at the void afar. That is. The blurry figure trembled and flew out, landing on the snowfield tens of millions of kilometers away. It was a metal creature with a metallic luster all over his body. His eyes were like rubies, and the body was stooping like a cheetah trying to stand on 2 feet. He was staring at the footsteps on the snow. I've never seen footsteps like this. He examined them with his back bent, after which, he brightened. Is it the humans? If so, it's my lucky day. He took off along the overlook, noticing another footstep thousands of kilometers away. He teleported himself over and over again toward the footsteps, and after dozens of times of doing so, he spotted a shadow wandering on the snow. Each step he took was more than 1,000 kilometers long. Haha, it is the human. The metal creature was exhilarated. I'm the first one to find him, which means I don't need to live in fear anymore. He dove toward Luo Feng. Luo Feng made an abrupt turn and saw a creature flying toward him. Luo Feng saw the 2-meter-tall body covered with dimming gold and the ruber-like eyes. Its metal Ka-Tuor. Ranked 626. The powerful ones were killing each other in ice hell. Nobody would approach each other if they weren't close, just as the weaker ones wouldn't approach the top 10 limit emperors. If they did so, they brought death upon themselves. A guy ranked 626 dares to challenge me, Luo Feng said. He stretched his left arm and 52 black balls appeared. I'll test my second move on you. The second move was extraordinarily complicated. However, it was so powerful that the engravings needed 52 stars to carry. Countless golden threads connected the stars and 1,000-meter-long beast god appeared. The beast god was dense, the scales on it were distinct. The scale-covered tail was the sturdiest. The scales on other parts of the beast god seemed to be covered with dust, whereas those on the tail were spick and span. There was a mystical vibe of lore inside. The sense of its aggressiveness emanated. Millions of square kilometers of space were trembling because of the beast god. The combination of 52 stars, the powerful secret techniques, and the stronger conception of beast god after 2,000 years resulted in outrageously magnificent power. No. Metal Ka-Tuor, who was originally overjoyed, was almost scared to death and teleported himself hundreds of thousands of kilometers afar, saying, I mean you no harm, human. I come here in the name of Sky Wolf. Luo Feng stood on the snow with the aggressive beast god floating above. Luo Feng looked at the beast god with satisfaction. He exercised this move because he wanted to try it in a real battle, and it seemed that it would wield significant power. Sky Wolf. Luo Feng looked at the metal creature from afar, waved his hand, and the beast god disappeared. The 52 stars fell from the sky to his palms. The metal creature flew toward Luo Feng carefully and smiled with respect. He took out the tablet of ranking. Mr. Human, please see for yourself. Ranking. Luo Feng skimmed the tablet and surveyed the ranking and the bounty Sky Wolf had offered to everyone in Ice Hell. Why is Sky Wolf so keen to find me after he promised not to kill me to the public? I'll go check. After thinking about it for a short while, Luo Feng decided to go. Lead me there, Luo Feng said, looking at the metal creature. Ka-Tuor was thrilled and said, Mr. Human, how lucky I am to be the first one to meet you. I'll lead you to the palace of the Master of Southern Ice Hell now. He teleported himself with Luo Feng to Southern Ice Hell. Luo Feng looked at the palace from afar and the ice tablets with rankings around the palace. Mr. Human, I don't dare to teleport inside, so let's just fly there, Ka-Tuor said. Let's go. Luo Feng nodded. 2 beams of light traveled toward the palace, and 2 of the servants were alerted. There were 7 servants around Sky Wolf's palace. 5 of them were brought by Sky Wolf from the outside. They dealt with minor duties, while the other 2 were in charge of guarding the palace. These 2 had been mentally controlled by Sky Wolf ever since being severely damaged by him. Who dares to trespass? The servants of Emperor level shouted after seeing the lights. Isn't that They looked at them carefully. Human. It's the human. They exchanged an eye contact after identifying the human whom their master had been dying to meet. It's me who brought the human here, Ka-Tuor said with a smile. Lucky for you, Ka-Tuor, you'll get the eternal protection of the master, one of the servants said. Human, master has been waiting for you for more than 200 years. Come with me, both of you. The servant brought both of them into the palace. Luo Feng observed the surroundings and was able to see the giant beast sitting on the throne. It was Sky Wolf of the royal demon race. Sky Wolf looked enormous with its more than 10-kilometer body, whereas it was to the golden-horned beast like an ant to an elephant. Human. Its eyes opened and overlooked him. Sky Wolf. Luo Feng looked at Sky Wolf from afar and smiled. Why are you looking for me so eagerly that you made such a promise to everyone in Ice Hell? Is there anything you want from me? Of course, there is. Sky Wolf looked to Ka-Tuor, who was bowing with reverence. Sky Wolf said slowly, you brought him here, Ka-Tuor? Yes, Ka-Tuor answered. Okay, Sky Wolf said. From now on, nobody will dare to touch you around your palace. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sky Wolf. Ka-Tuor was so thrilled that his body was trembling. As someone ranked lower than 600, he was one of the weaker in Ice Hell and had to live in fear all the time, which was why he often went out to look for Luo Feng, knowing he could get Sky Wolf's protection. Go! Sky Wolf didn't want to talk much with Ka-Tuor. Ka-Tuor greeted Sky Wolf with veneration and bowed to Luo Feng with gratefulness before leaving the palace. Luo Feng couldn't help feeling for the weaker creatures in Ice Hell. The door was closed. The door is closed, and only your servants are here. Lu Feng looked at Sky Wolf on the throne. You can say what you want now. Sky Wolf overlooked Luo Feng from the throne while a trace of amusement flashed in its eyes. His voice was echoing in the entire palace. Human, you should have figured out that I ask you here because I want to buy the anonymous account sensor from you. And you should know how much I want to connect to the outer world after being detained here for such a long time. You're from the demon race, and I'm from the human race, Luo Feng said as he looked up at Sky Wolf. You should know that our races were hostile against each other and that the virtual universe will reject your consciousness. You can't enter the virtual universe even if you had the sensor. Souls and elements of consciousness were fundamentally different between races. The virtual universe belonged to humans. Lots of creatures from the demon race, the bug race, and the automation race wanted to use the virtual universe to convey their messages. However, the races deemed as enemies to humans couldn't connect to the virtual universe. Even the other barbarian races who were not hostile against humans would be restricted and monitored while using the virtual universe. Silver Eye, for example, was a special creature and would still be able to use the virtual universe, although he had limited access authority. I understand that, Skywolf said. He looked at Luo Feng. However, you should also know that my servants are able to do that. 2 of my servants are from the sister races of humans, and they're able to enter it. Where's your previous sensor? Luo Feng asked. These sneaky enemies of the barbarian races would try everything to utilize the humans' virtual universe, which was quite handy. Thus, they could usually acquire the sensor. Something went wrong, thus the access authority was taken away, Skywolf said. No wonder. Luo Feng grinned. The monitor was especially sensitive and determined, and no matter how they tried to conceal the fact that they were using human slaves or barbarian slaves from the Hong Alliance to connect to the virtual universe, their access authorities would be stripped right away once a clue was found. Meanwhile, the access authority of the sensor would be taken away. What was worse, it would use the coordinates to capture the phony. As a result, countless numbers of individuals belonging to the barbarian races had been captured and killed. However, the 5 peak races were still trying to establish intelligence networks through the virtual universe. I don't have the sensor, Luo Feng said, shaking his head. This lie may work on others, but my race has been fighting yours forever. Do you really think I'll buy that? Sky Wolf was gazing at Luo Feng. You can certainly make a sensor using the artificial intelligence you're carrying. The most important thing is the access authority, and you're more than qualified to apply for an anonymous account. Sky Wolf kept overlooking Luo Feng. Relax, he continued. I don't want to give you a hard time. You know that there is a plethora of intelligence systems for espionage built by the barbarian races. Although it's difficult to be detected, the destruction of an intelligence system spells huge losses. Regardless, there are still so many barbarian races trying to build one intelligence system after another. Sky Wolf stared at Luo Feng. It doesn't matter if I'm added, as there are so many of them, right? Skywolf gazed down at Luo Feng. There's no point hiding my intention because you can easily guess it, Skywolf said. Yes, I want out. Although I'm not sure whether the intelligence system is still there or not, I still want to take my chances. I want out. And you think I'll help a barbarian? Luo Feng said. Not help, but a deal, Skywolf said. The anonymous sensor is easy to get, so selling one to me is not a crime. Besides, you're not helping me send the message. Rather, the only thing you will do is to sell an account. Innumerable accounts are being sold throughout the human race every day, and some of them are purchased secretly by the barbarian race. Luo Feng stared right back at him. Skywolf was correct. It was commonplace to resell the accounts. I won't take it for granted, Skywolf said. I'm willing to trade it for one treasure. Treasure? Luo Feng lifted his eyebrow. How generous you are. Skywolf lifted its hoof, beside which appeared a black-stoned stick. On the two sides of it were beautiful sculptures, which made it look more like a piece of art than a weapon. However, the force it emanated filled the entire palace. One treasure for one anonymous sensor, said Skywolf. Skywolf watched Luo Feng. Yet Luo Feng was silent. You can have as many sensors as you want in the human world, Skywolf said. And you're only selling one sensor. Both of us are trapped in ice hell, and all I want is to leave. Besides, I am only at the Emperor level of undying. Me leaving is not a threat to you humans whatsoever. Emperor undying? Even Universe Knights weren't influential in the human race and the demon race. No. Luo Feng said, shaking his head. You're not selling the sensor, even for a treasure? Skywolf said. He stood up abruptly and sharply became aggressive. The 5 servants were glaring at Luo Feng. Luo Feng looked at Skywolf and kept shaking his head. No deal. It was not because Luo Feng was inflexible. Selling one sensor was nothing. Besides, adventuring in the universe could sometimes prompt different races to cooperate under some special circumstances. Luo Feng didn't care about one sensor. What he really cared about was the price. 1 treasure? Not enough. 2. I'll give you the treasure I'm currently using. Skywolf growled and glared at Luo Feng. 2 treasures for 1 sensor that is cheap on the outside. This is the greatest price I'll pay. Take it, human. Even if you're adventuring in a secret area of the universe, it's not easy to get 2 treasures. Luo Feng looked up at Skywolf and said mildly, no deal. No deal. Skywolf was startled. Don't you know these are both treasures? Do you even know how many treasures there are in Ice Hell? Even invincible emperors like me, or Silver Eye, have no more than 3. I'm keeping only the most important and most suitable one while giving the other 2 to you. How dare you? Skywolf roared. Don't you be so outrageous. I can use these 2 treasures to hire a Universe Knight to kill the most powerful of the human race. I'm not asking you to betray the human race, all I'm asking for is a sensor. I'll ask you one more time, will you sell the sensor? Luo Feng shook his head. No. Skywolf was infuriated. The entire palace was filled with belligerence. Skywolf vanished from its throne while Luo Feng opened his wings with 52 black balls around his hand. Howl. Skywolf appeared right at where Luo Feng had been with its hoofs bent. He stared at Luo Feng bellicosely. Luo Feng stood afar with 522 black balls floating around his hand and said, I thought you made a promise to all of Ice Hell that you wouldn't attempt to kill me. It depends, Skywolf said hoarsely with its teeth exposed. The 3 strange scars on his forehead were squirming. Goddamn human blocking my hope of getting out. Tell me now, I shouldn't kill you? That sounds about right, said Luo Feng. But you should know that if you do kill me, you'll never get the access authority to the sensor. Without the access authority, the sensor is useless to you. Luo Feng looked at the 52 black balls in his palms. Besides, you can't kill me. Even Silver Eye, who's proficient in time law, couldn't do that. Luo Feng stared at Skywolf. As for you, your edge is space law, but I'm faster than you. How are you going to kill me? Skywolf was as belligerent as one could be, but Luo Feng treated it with nonchalance. They looked at each other from afar. Okay, Skywolf said in a deep voice. I bet your status is pretty high, given your power, and it's much easier to get treasures on the outside. No wonder these 2 treasures can't attract you. Well, I'll trade the sensor for the most important treasure I have. Oh. Luo Feng was bewildered. Skywolf possessed something more valuable. These 2 treasures will not belong to you, but I'll give you this one instead, Skywolf said as he glared at Luo Feng. I acquired this treasure by chance. This is something worth fighting for, even between universe knights. I killed a weak barbarian and got this in Ice Hell. What is this mysterious treasure? Asked Luo Feng. Is it the invaluable? He grinned. I won't believe that. Of course not, said Skywolf. That would set the universe knights crazy. However, this one is much more precious than a treasure, though it can't compare with the invaluable. Skywolf slightly lifted its hoof, and a hexagonal stone tablet the size of a human palm came into sight. There was a beast roaring on the tablet. The sculpture of the beast on the tablet made Luo Feng's heart tremble. He had seen several kinds of peculiar beasts, like the one on the 9-universe primal chaos tablet and the beast god. However, the beast on this tablet stirred some special feelings inside Luo Feng. What is this? Luo Feng said, grinning. This is merely an ordinary stone tablet. The only thing special about it is the shape and the sculpture. You call this treasure? Just penetrate your will into it, said Skywolf, staring at Luo Feng. Then you'll understand. This is the token of beast god inheritance from the most powerful ancestral god school. Of course, it is much more valuable. This video will end here.